one of the objectives for rational numbers is being able to compare and put them in order. So when you do that, you have a couple different strategies you can use. The strategies you pick depend on the numbers you have. Some of them are going to work better than others. So what we have here are 4 fractions, and the very basic way of ordering them is to figure out how close they are to your benchmark fractions. Your benchmark fractions being 0, 1/2, and 1. We pick those as our benchmark fractions because we know what 0 looks like. It's nothing. We know what 1/2 looks like, and half would be exactly halfway between those. So when we look at numbers that we have to order, we need to first figure out, are they closest to 0, 1/2, or 1? So let's look at each of these individually. Okay, so 5/9. Since 5 is about half of 9, your numerator is about half of the denominator, we will say that 5/9 is about or closer to 1/2. Even though it's not exactly 1/2, it's certainly not closer to 0 or 1 than it is to 1/2. Okay, so 7/13. 7 is about half of 13, so we'll also say that 7/13 is close to 1/2. Okay, 2/7 is not close to a half. 2/4 would be exactly 1/2. 2/7 is going to be closer to 0. So far out of these 3 fractions, 2/7 is going to be my smallest. And then 10/11, the numerator and denominator are pretty close together. In fact, they're only 1 unit fraction away. They're only 1/11 away. So we're going to say 10/11 is closest to 1. So we know what the least fraction is going to be, and that's going to be 2/7, and we know what the greatest is going to be, and that's going to be 10/11. Now my next job is to figure out which one of these two is bigger, 5/9 or 7/13. All right, so I'm going to slide down here a little bit. I'm just going to focus on 5/9 and 7/13 because those are going to be the ones that are going to get me the most I have to think about. All right, now since both of these fractions are closer to 1/2, it's just using benchmark fractions isn't going to be helpful for me here, so I have to use one of my other strategies. One of my strategies is to figure out if one of these is less than a half or more than a half. Okay, so 5/9 is actually going to be slightly more than a half because 5/10 would be exactly a half, and you might recall from elementary school, the smaller the number of your denominator, the bigger the fractions. Same thing with 7/13. 7/14 would be exactly a half, so 7/13 is going to be slightly bigger than 1/2, so that's not really going to help me there. My favorite go-to strategy, even though it might take the longest, is common denominators. Okay, in elementary school, your teachers probably stressed that you needed to find the least common denominator. Here, since I'm just using it as a strategy, finding a common denominator is all I really need to do here. So I'm just going to multiply my 2 denominators together, which, by the way, will give me, in this case, my least common denominator, but it won't always. So 9 times 13 is 117. All right, and now I need to figure out what I can multiply by 9 to get to 117. Well, I know that from over here. 9 times 13. So then I'm going to multiply 5 times 13. And I'm going to get 65. So 5/9 equals 65 over 117. Who knew? You wouldn't really know that unless you went through this process to find common denominators. So now I'm going to do this to the 7/13. Need to figure out what I can multiply by 13 to get to 117. And I know from over here it's 9. And 7 times 9 is 63. That made my life a little bit easier. All right, so looking at what I have here using common denominators and equivalent fractions, 5/9 is just slightly, ever so slightly bigger than 7/13. I wouldn't have known that, though, if I didn't go through this process of common denominators. Finding common denominators and equivalent fractions is kind of your go-to, always going to work. As you see here with benchmark fractions, that's the easiest to think about. However, that's not always going to work. All right, so now I know that 7/13 is slightly smaller. That's going to come after 2/7. And then 5/9 is going to come after that. And here is my final answer. 2/7, 7/13, 5/9, and 10/11. And that would be those fractions ordered from least to greatest, or in ascending order as the problem says.